Hello, I'm Martin Omander, and this is the show Root Access, the show on Google Developers Live about startups. And I'm joined today by Dawn Dodge, startup advocate, longtime investor. So Dawn, we did a show a couple of weeks ago about ownership structure of your startup. And we got a really interesting question from Anthony Kelly. Thank you, Anthony, for sending us a question. He asked, what are some of the do's and don'ts for attracting investors and getting the investors signed up? And what are some of the mistakes you have seen? And what are some of the right ways of doing it?
Well, you need to choose your investors carefully. Sometimes companies are so desperate for startup capital that they'll take money from anyone who comes at almost any terms. And you do what you have to do, obviously. But there are some things you need to do to protect yourself. So when you take money from an investor, you need to be very clear up front about what your long-term vision is. So is this going to be a 12 months and we sell it and flip it kind of business, or is this going to be a 5-year kind of growth and development and building users and revenues, and what kind of expectations do they have? So if you're clear with those kinds of expectations up front, it makes it a lot easier down the line. So that's the first thing. The second is to just think about the ownership structure. And is it common stock? Is it a convertible note? Is it preferred stock? So those are fairly generic terms. What they mean is common stock is just regular stock that employees get. So employees, when they get employee stock options, they're getting common stock. Mm-hmm. Investors, VC investors, when they invest, they get preferred stock. Preferred means that it has preferences over the common stockholders, typically in doomsday scenarios, like when you're shutting down the company, or when the company is being acquired, or those sorts of things. They might have preferences.
So they get paid first if it shuts down?
Yes. So preferred,
assets?
exactly. Yeah. Preferred means that they get paid first. They get preference. And if there's any money left over, it goes to the common shareholders. So that's fairly typical. There are also convertible notes, which have become fairly popular recently. Convertible notes means that it's a loan that converts to stock when you raise your next round. So it's an easy way to raise money. From a legal point of view, it can be a 1-page or 2-page document. It's very inexpensive to do. And it just lays out, here's the money that you're putting in. It will convert to common stock or preferred stock at the next round, when you raise your next round. And typically it has a discount. So you might have a 20% discount where you put your money in, and then sometime later when you raise money from a VC, if that valuation is, let's say, 5 million and you have a 20% discount, then your money goes in at 4 million, because that's a 20% discount off the 5. So it typically has a discount, or it might have a cap, meaning that you put your money in at a cap of 4 million. And if this takes off like a rocket and you raise money at 10 million, your money goes in at the cap of 4 million. So in essence, you get 2.5 times your money right away from the first round.
Right.
So it's those kinds of things to look at with investors. There are some other nuances that are only an issue when things go wrong. Mm-hmm. But when they do go wrong, you need to make sure that you're protected, and that's where you have to get a lawyer and really understand what each of those provisions say.
So the lawyer, you need the lawyer up front then when you get investors, just so that you have the convertible note or whatever set up correctly?
Yes, so lawyers do this every day. So they know what provisions to put in there. Startup entrepreneurs do it once in their life, maybe twice.
Yep.
So it looks fairly simple, but there can be some catches. So it's always good to have a lawyer who has done this multiple times to set up the initial documents for you.
Very good. In a similar vein, are there do's and don'ts about bringing founders, co-founders on board?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a different set of issues, equally important, maybe even more important. So you need to have the same understanding with your founders, your co-founders, that you do with your investors. Meaning, here's what we're going to try to do. Here's how long it's going to take to get there. Here are the roles and responsibilities that each of us are going to have. Here's what we're going to contribute to the company. Here's how we'll divide up the founders' shares. If you have 3 founders, it's not necessarily 33% for each one. It could be that there's one founder who they are the technical genius and the vision of the company, and they get 50 or 60%. And the other 2 founders split the remaining 40%. But you need to be very clear about that up front. Second thing is you need to have employment agreements and IP assignment rights. Sounds kind of strange to do that when there's only 2 or 3.
Yeah, only 2 guys. What could happen?
A lot could happen.
Wow.
If you don't have IP assignments and employment contracts, then they are free to leave the company at any time and take their ideas with them. So that's pretty dangerous for an investor. If an investor comes in and says, okay, you've got an idea and you've built it and you have 3 employees, what happens if one of your co-founder leaves? And they can leave with the idea and start another company. They're going to want employment contracts, IP assignment rights, and maybe in some states, non-compete agreements. Those don't work in California, but there's non-compete agreements that say that if you leave the company, you can't do exactly the same thing at another company for some period of time. So there's a variety of issues that you need to face with your co-founders very early on that are setting expectations and protecting the company in case you leave, or protecting the technology. And again, a good startup lawyer can take you through this in an hour or so and just make sure you're protected.
So lawyer early on to help with that piece as well.
Yes, you need a lawyer for both pieces.
To
set up the company, to set up the agreements with your co-founders, and also to set up the financing documents with early investors.
Great. Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
I'm a developer as well, and when I do development, I love to do it on Google Cloud Platform. It makes all management of your application much easier. You don't have to deal with individual servers going up and down and things like that. Google takes care of all that. We have a special offer for you, Root Access viewers. You can get a $2,000 credit to start building your application on the Google Cloud Platform, and you'll see the details on screen. While you're trying that out, in the meantime, I hope to see you in the next show, and keep those comments coming on YouTube. We'll pick them up and deal with them in future episodes. Thank you. Bye.